Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, pop culture, social media, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. If this is your first time here to the channel, I'd like to welcome you guys here. If you are returning visitors or subscribers of the channel, I want to thank all of you guys for your continued support. This weekend in gaming news, there is an exclusive you can find up there in the top right-hand corner. EG7 is going to purchase Daybreak Gaming Company. And what does this mean for the potential return of Landmark or even H1Z1 Just Survive? As many of you have been asking me over social media and here on the channel about Just Survive, it will be interesting to see what will happen after this purchase. But if you guys want to check it out, it's up there in the top right-hand corner.
So in this contested election, what would it mean if Biden is able to pull this off? Well, in New Jersey, almost 1/3 of small businesses in New Jersey have been closed. Report. 1/3 of small businesses in New Jersey have closed down in 2020, according to a report from the Star-Ledger newspaper. It's really bad, and without federal dollars coming into New Jersey, the Main Street stores and other establishments are not gonna make it through the winter, said Eileen Keene, the state director of the National Federation of Independent Business. So, it is so vitally important that we as a country remind each other that business still has to flow. We can be cautious, we can take precautions, we can do those things to protect ourselves and protect the people around us. However, if we do go into a Biden administration, we have already heard from his illness czar that we could be looking at 6 weeks of lockdown. However, that could change, of course, because we know that Biden is really just the Trojan horse for the establishment, and they are, of course, very desperate to get back into power. And if they say maybe we don't shut things down, or maybe we do, then he will do that. But nonetheless, we have to be prepared and be aware that these are the potentials that we could face should we see a Biden administration. If you guys are following me on social media, you would have seen that I had posted this article last week. I would encourage you guys to give me a follow there on social media. Those links will be below this video. That way you guys will get a handle on these news articles that are often put on the Wayback Machine and or archived because they don't fit the mainstream media, legacy media, establishment, and or the specs and censorship that have been outlined by the tech giants. This article is from Johns Hopkins University, a newsletter from Genevieve Briand, and of course it has been edited and changed, but we kept it here on the Wayback Machine. Fellow commentators, of course, will grab these articles and just kind of keep them just in case something like what just happened happens, and then we have these available. So a closer look at U.S. deaths due to the illness that I can't still say on YouTube. Now we go down here to this section of the article because this is the important key factor. After retrieving data on the CDC website, Briand compiled a graph representing percentages of total deaths per age category from early February to early September, which includes the period from before the illness was detected in the U.S. to after infection rates soared. Surprisingly, the deaths of older people stayed the same before and after the illness. Since the illness mainly affects the elderly, experts expected an increase in the percentages of deaths in older groups. However, the increase is not seen from the CDC data. In fact, the percentages of deaths among all age groups remain relatively the same. So you can clearly see right here, this goes against the narrative that we've seen from the mainstream media, which is that they are increasing, the deaths are increasing. So why would the media want to exaggerate this if there wasn't some sort of narrative or some sort of incentive by them, by someone, to drive this particular narrative that we have seen for quite some time? As you can imagine, it didn't take long for Genevieve's news article posting on her research to go viral across the internet. Facebook and Twitter and other platforms were doing their best to edit and then suppress the article itself until they realized that there was just too much going on, so they had to go after Johns Hopkins University, of course, because they are a medical institution. These are medical experts, and of course, experts are people in authority. So if they have one of their own saying that there isn't an increase in death rates, that goes against the establishment and the particular narrative that's being driven. So as we can see here, Yanni Gu had to return and do an editor's note. After the newsletter published this article on November the 22nd, it was brought to our attention that our coverage of Genevieve Briand's presentation, Illness, Deaths, and Look at U.S. Data, has been used to support dangerous inaccuracies that minimize the impact of the pandemic. So what they're saying here is that, yes, people were sharing the information and saying, look, why is it that when the data is compared by Johns Hopkins University and that of the CDC, we don't see, or Briand did not see, an increase in the deaths as the mainstream media and the establishment is pushing? This, of course, was a major concern. Now, of course, as a commentator and just a small-time YouTuber, people may say, yeah, but I mean, you're not a person of authority, you're not vetted, you don't have the pedigree, of course, that many of these institutions have. And of course, they're in a position of authority. So the things that they say have merit and weight. And I'm just, of course, just a small-time YouTuber who can't even say the actual name of the illness. But people may also say, but do you have anything to really suggest that there is some sort of driven narrative? And I have to say, absolutely, there is. An article from NPR, pre-Trump administration, pre-pandemic, from September 13th, 2016. 50 years ago, sugar industry quietly paid scientists to point blame at fat. In the 1960s, the sugar industry funded research that downplayed the risks of sugar and highlighted the hazards of fat, according to a newly published article in JAMA Internal Medicine. The article draws on internal documents to show that an industry group called the Sugar Research Foundation wanted to refute concerns about sugar's possible role in heart disease. The SRF then sponsored research by Harvard scientists, people in authority, in other words, like Johns Hopkins, that did just that. The result was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1967. So 53 years ago, we see not only from Harvard scientists, but also from another well-respected journal, that being the New England Journal of Medicine, that you can kind of encourage scientists and medical doctors, the community of experts, to maybe perhaps give your particular narrative or something that you're trying to get out there into the public if you just quietly fund it. And of course, this is the pushback that a lot of us are getting as commentators on YouTube, of course, because our content gets censored or demonetized because we may be misleading, apparently, or providing people with information that may create confusion, tumult, and whatever else could be going on because, of course, we are not people in authority. But even if we are, we can see that the establishment and the media, as well as tech giants, who are all in it together to try to drive this pandemic that we're experiencing, or any other. I believe there was an article at one time, I didn't try to research it, but I'd heard about it when I was researching the sugar, is that OPEC also hired certain groups of experts to, I guess it was to outline like the safety of drilling for oil and things of that nature, like the percentages and the data of being able to drill for oil. So if you have the money and you have the influence, then of course you can create and drive a narrative. Now, I may not have the resources that Genevieve has, but we can do some pretty simple research ourselves as content creators or citizen journalists, those who want to go out there and actually look up the information. But of course, people may not have the time or the ability to look into these matters, and that's why I like to cover it here on my channel. So from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, probably Genevieve had a lot more information and data to work with, but we can see this in this very simple snapshot from the CDC on the survivability rate of the pandemic. So from 0 to 19 years old, it's 99.9, 20 to 49, 99.98, and then 50 to 69, 99.5, and 70, 94.6. You're not going to see this on the mainstream media. You would think that perhaps this would make it out there into social media, but it's not as pervasive because it doesn't go with the flow of the narrative that's being established surrounding the pandemic. However, this information right here is publicly available from the CDC. You can actually go to the CDC and get the particular data and information, maybe as close as what Genevieve was researching. However, we can see in this very simple snapshot exactly how the survivability rate is very high for those who have the particular illness.
All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. Thank you so much for your continued support, especially those on Parlay and on Rumble. Thank you guys for your continued support there. And of course, the dedicated and loyal fans here on YouTube. As you see there on the screen for those on YouTube, that would be the channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe, along with notifications. That way you guys will know when there is content here on the channel, as well as the Friday vlog, of course. And I will see you guys right there behind the camera next week.